Hey, what's up? Today I'm going to show you how I made this, or at least show some techniques that I used to make this. It's basically a lot of simple things that you need to do over and over until it looks complicated and until you get something like this. I'll show you the reference images that I had when I was making this. I found these on mostly on Pinterest, I think, and some on ArtStation maybe. But basically some castles and cathedrals, and as you can see, this is very similar to this, and I think this is like an AI image. It's pretty low quality and some things kind of don't make a lot of sense, but I liked the lighting in this one and just kind of the design, so it's really quite similar to that one. But it's always a good idea to have reference images to like just look at when you're making stuff. If you feel lost, you can just look at those and you'll get some ideas. And in total this took 8 hours, but I spread that time out over a few days. So maybe one day I spent 1 or 2 hours and the next day another hour. The most basic thing you can do when you make stuff like this, like hard surface modeling, is you bring in a cube, and I can't even see where it is. There it is. There's a cube. Obviously you can just extrude stuff. So you select a face and then press E. Let me turn on screencast keys. And yeah, you can just do that, and you'll make things, right? Look at that, that's a shape. But there's another version of the extrude. So if you select all these faces, or this edge loop, you go into face select mode with the 3, then hold Alt and click this edge here. Then you'll select that edge loop, and let's inset these. So I'm gonna press I. And if we press it again, you'll get this individual face inset. Now, if you press Alt plus E, you get this little menu here. And this one's really useful. Extrude faces along normals. And then you get this result, which is really handy for a lot of things. Because if you just press E, this is what's going to happen. And that's kind of not what you want. I mean, I guess you could press E, then S, then Shift Z, or Shift Z. And you get this result, which is kind of, well, I mean, that's kind of cool as well, but I really like using Alt plus E and then extrude faces along normals. It's really nice. So you can see for these spikes, that's something I've used. Actually, it's not. For these, I actually used something like, yeah, I pressed E, then S, then Shift Z. So you only scale on X and Y axes. Another really good technique for stuff like this is the bevel modifier, or not the bevel modifier, but the bevel tool. So if you have a face like this, you can press B or Control B, and you'll get this result. And that's cool, but you can make it cooler if you do that. Press Control B, and then this menu appears. I think by default it's kind of hidden like this, so you just have to expand that. And then if you go here to custom, you can get all sorts of shapes on this. And I really like this cornice molding. You can't see that right now, but if you increase these segments, you can start seeing that shape. And I usually go for like 20 segments or something. So yeah, that looks nice, and it's like an easy way to get detail. You can just do that wherever you want. You can see I've used that here on these little extrusions and insets here as well. There's all sorts of places where that appears. And I did that for the stairs as well. So if you have a cube and you select this face or this edge, for example, and then you press Control B, we can go to steps, and now you have a staircase. Another technique I really like that I used for these elements is the array modifier, and you can use the object offset to make it circular like this. So let's just bring in a cube here, and then in edit mode, we'll just bring it up a little bit. Maybe make it smaller. Next step is to bring in an empty, and the empty has to be in the exact same spot as the origin of this one. So now the cube is up here because we moved it in edit mode, but the origin is still down here. It's also really important that the scales are the same. So here the scale is 1, and same for the cube. But let's go here to the cube and add an array modifier, and then uncheck this and check the object offset. Now with this eyedropper tool, we're gonna select the empty we had here. And now if we rotate this by pressing R, we're gonna get a new instance, and it's gonna move like you moved the empty. So if we press R and then Y, just offset it a little bit like that, and then we can add more or increase the count here, and we get a circle eventually. Now, this is not a perfect circle. Like you can see here, the last one, there's like a smaller gap there. So what you can do is you take this count and you go here, or actually you go to the empty, and then here, this Y value, you're gonna type in 360 and then divided by the count, which was 23, and then you get the exact angle that you need to get like this even gap between all these elements. Now, if the scales are off, you'll get something like this. So if you get like a weird spiral like this, that's because the scales are not the same. And if they're like offset like this, or they're not in the same place, or also gonna get like a spiral kind of thing. This line is just a 3D scan, so you can use the Polycam app to 3D scan objects. And this was like this is from a couch, like an old couch made of wood, and the armrests have lines on them. So I scanned that and looks kind of cool. And obviously you can use the array modifier for just doing this kind of stuff, where it's like a lot of things in a straight line like that. It's I use that a lot as well. So yeah, if you don't know, we uncheck this object offset and then just click the relative offset. You can increase the factor here and you get like a row of elements, which is nice. Another useful modifier that I used a lot in this is the mirror modifier. And the way I use it is I just bring in an object, like a cube, for example, and I'll just place it where I want it. And then you can, start doing stuff. And then you want to mirror this on this entire building. So let's add a mirror modifier, but now it's just mirroring itself on the x-axis or whatever. So that's what it's doing, but we don't want that. So we're gonna select this eyedropper tool in the mirror modifier, and then select something that has its origin in the middle. So that would be like this staircase or this arch, anything that's in the middle. So let's do that. I think I mirrored a lot of things on this one, but as long as it's in the middle, it's fine. So let's just pick this one, I guess, and now it's mirrored. So I use that a lot because it's like a symmetrical building. Now let's talk about textures, and this is what it looks like in the material preview. I didn't put a lot of effort into this, but it worked fine. Now let's look, actually, yeah, there's two shaders. They're pretty much the same. One is just kind of a little bit brighter. The brighter one doesn't have like this brick texture on it, but let's look at this one. The base texture is just like a plaster texture from Ambient CG. Actually, no, it might be from Polyhaven, but yeah, it's free, so that's cool. And if we look at that, like the diffuse texture here, that's kind of a beige looking thing. It's like concrete or whatever. And I'll just show you kind of from scratch how to make that. So we'll just bring in a cube. I'm gonna make a new material here in the shader editor. And I'm gonna select the principled BSDF and then press Ctrl-Shift-T to bring up the Explorer here. I can find my textures. I'm pretty sure it was this one. And in here, I'm going to hold Control and click the diffuse texture, the roughness texture, and the displacement texture. And then I'm going to just click here, this blue button, and now it has that shader. And this displacement texture is probably a bit too extreme. I'm going to put this scale to 0.1, I think. And then I pretty much just made it grayscale, I think. So I brought in a hue saturation value node and just removed that saturation. And I think I also had an RGB curves node to make it a bit darker, something like that. I think looks kind of similar, and actually it looks kind of beige still, so I don't think I brought the saturation all the way down. Looks a bit brighter. So that's basically it, but there's a noise texture also on top of this, just to kind of break up the tiling. So if we look at only the diffuse texture here, you can see like it repeats a lot. And to kind of hide that, I just put a noise texture. I made it bigger here so we can just see that it's repeating here as well. But let's bring in a noise texture, Control-T to bring in these nodes. Set it to object here, and then I'm gonna bring in a mix color node. I'm gonna connect that here on the diffuse chain here, and then I'm gonna bring the noise texture here, the factor into the B input down here. Let's change it from mix to multiply, and we can increase the factor to 1. And here we want a color ramp just to increase the contrast of this noise texture. So I don't know, something like this maybe. And we should decrease the scale here as well. So like 1 or 0.5. Now that's a bit much maybe, so let's bring it down. But you can see like, yeah, that really prevents or kind of hides the repetition a lot. All right, for that brick effect, I think I actually just mixed them with a mix color node. So something like this, and it might just be fine with, yeah, if you mix it with mix. You could also use multiply probably. And then you're kind of getting this brick effect. But I'm pretty sure I used mortar smooth and then, yeah, just played around with these settings to get what I wanted. And yeah, that's basically it. It's pretty simple. When it comes to UV unwrapping, I just do this. I go into edit mode, tab, select everything with A, and then press U to bring up this menu, and then click this cube projection. You can see down here that that's what's happening. And I'm pretty sure I did that for every one of these objects. It's a really quick way. It's not great. Like I'm sure you can see like on some parts that it doesn't look completely right. Some things don't line up and whatever, but in this case it's like pretty far away from the camera, or like it's so small that you can't really tell in the end. So that's what I do. Let's check this out. If we give that the same material, yeah, it works. And when I have a lot of objects like this, you're gonna have to like adjust the UV a bit depending on how big the objects are. So if you select this one, for example, it's very tall. So you can see here, I haven't done much. I don't think I scaled this one, for example, but something smaller like this, I've scaled it down to sort of match the brick size or just overall texture size. So if you go into edit mode, select everything, and select everything in the UV editor as well, you can sort of scale it up and down to sort of match the size here. Now it's too small or whatever, too big. So then you just adjust that there. For the lighting, it's just a sunlight, I'm pretty sure. It's over here. And I have 2 cubes over here to like cast shadows on the top and bottom of this. But let's just look at the sunlight first. It's kind of bluish to kind of imitate moonlight or whatever. It's set to 15 and the angle, whatever, that's the default, I think. And for the lighting, there's actually an HDRI as well. I don't remember where I found this, but it's like an overcast HDRI thing. Let's see if we can see it here. Yeah, that's what it looks like. And then I just have a color ramp here to make it a bit more blue. And it kind of looks pretty good in Eevee here. If we delete this, maybe. Here you can see the shadows that are being cast by these 2 cubes over there. And here, there's a big cube. It's a normal cube. It just looks like this because I set the viewport display here to wire. And it has the volume scatter shader, I think. Yeah, it's this one. Here are the settings. Density at 0.008 and anisotropy at 0.7. All of this is like, you know, some extra stuff. I have a noise texture that goes into the color to sort of simulate smoke or like mist. It's not super important, but you can take a look at the settings here if you want to. It's just, and these are green because they're animated, just to get some movement on that mist. I can show that in another video if you want that, but it's always good to have like a cube that covers the scene that has a volume scatter node or a principled volume. So yeah, that's just some things I wanted to show. Hopefully that was not too quick, and hopefully you learned something. And yeah, you can just use these methods. It just takes a bit of time to, you know, make all these things, but the steps in themselves are pretty simple. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. See ya. Bye.